Okay, good morning. We are continuing Yoreh Pei Dalet Tola'im. Now, just a drop of cleanup. So we mentioned the word the last day about Yirakot. So there's a great book that came out. It's called The Science Behind the Mishnah by Padowitz and Rabbi Sasson. So in there they have a nice little thing about Yirakot. And so they clearly specify when the Chazal, when you see in the Shulchan Aruch, it talks about Yirakot, it always means leafy vegetables. And it's when you're eating the plant itself. Okay, again, it's nothing to do with science. It's how we define Yirakot, such as cabbage, lettuce, broccoli, celery, and spinach, for example. But it would not include vegetables that we call vegetables like Yirakot, potatoes, tomatoes, cucumbers, etc. Okay, one last thing also on Pei Dalet Sima Siif Chet, which we learned the last time. So just to clarify, so I looked again in the Torah Beis Yosef. So the whole case of having the fruits float up and separate them in a bowl of water and then putting them in boiling hot water. So this is quoted only as a minhag yafa. It's just a good idea. It's only a chumrah that's brought down in the Rush. But what does that mean? It means if it's less than 12 months, then for sure it's going to be usr unless you check it. Okay, you want to be able to cook it without checking. So if it's less than 12 months, there's nothing you can do because it's maybe from the worms could be in there from mechubar. Nothing you can do. It's only if it's after 12 months that mechubar becomes kosher. We discussed before why. And now that you're only worried about betalush, so it's good to float them in water. Why? So if it's fruit that have worms, that have holes in there, and they're worms until it floats, it's less dense. Because it's mechubar, really mikar din, it's 100% mutter to eat it. It's only a chumrah to throw them away. And if it's betalush, so they usually don't float up, but they could, so you want to get rid of those. And the cold water and the hot water helps to negate the problem of worms that are talush. Mikar din, it's probably still mutter, because you're looking at it and it's only a miut hamatzo, it's not vadai. So therefore, it's only a case, it's just a chumrah that you want to, maybe some of the worms will come out in the cold water, and whatever doesn't come out in the cold water, then for sure they will die and not move, and then again, it's okay. Okay, that was that case. Just interesting for fun, the Ben Ish Chai points out in Parshat Tzav, when it comes to checking for your lettuce that you're using, chazeret, mara, whatever you're using, he's saying that whoever checks, talking about women, we're going to see that today, but whoever checks, you could end up eating, he puts the expression, you could end up getting more lashes than you have of hair on your head, because each one is 5 and you're having it multiple times and you're serving it to all your guests, and who knows how many bugs are there, so it's really important to check. Okay, let's read inside. Today we're starting with Yud Aleph. Yud Aleph. Seif Yud Aleph. Isha shenimtza achar b'dikata sheret sanir le'anayim. So a woman, kagon chomet. So then, let's say a woman checks. Again, it doesn't matter who checks, men or women, and women are 100% kosher to trust them. In fact, in many of our houses, the women are sometimes better at checking, or more reliable than the men. But anyways, the case was a woman found, you see it's chomet it's a large, something like a small skink or lizard, but it's something that's relatively large. We're not talking about tiny insects. And she tells you she checked it, and then you see this, again, it depends on the situation. It could be it came there later, but it's asr le'echol mibdikata. So she basically becomes pasul, and you can no longer trust her. We're talking about a case when she just checked it, nothing could have got there, and you see something huge, relatively, and basically someone's very negligent. We had that by chelev, with the shochet or tabach. But even if a person makes a mistake, he checks and isn't able to catch everything, they're still kosher to trustworthy for checking in the future, because they're little and it's possible to be missed and not see them. Okay, Si'if Yud Bet. Merkachat shenaflu letocho nemalim. So you have this gem, and now you see some ants fall inside. Ve'avru aleim 12 chodesh. And now 12 months go by. You've been saving it for 12 months with those pieces of, you see ants in there. But the question is, we learned if it's 12 months, then it's no longer aser, right? They don't have a bone, then these little insects, they dry out and they become mutter. Yesh listapik behem, mipnei shehadvash darko lahamid dvarim nitzmanim betocho. So there's a question here. Do we say since it's in honey, it has a preservative factor? And maybe it preserves it without drying out. It makes it stay moist, and it just preserves it, and therefore it takes more than 12 months. So it seems like we have to be machmer lechatchila. The freezing also maybe. Okay, very good. Freezing similar as well.
The difference between fruit preserves, this language of Davash, and real honey, bee honey, where it's the opposite.
Bee honey is the opposite?
Tends to dissolve bees and insects that fall in.
Okay, I don't know. You saw that?
We saw it.
Okay. So here so the poskim say if the bugs are shleimim, if the bugs, you see this in the shach, if the bugs are complete, then the honey preserves it. I'm not sure if it's only talking about jam. You're saying it's only jam, not be honey, okay? But if it's pieces, then it's quicker to dissolve. So the shach makes that distinction. He doesn't specify, he doesn't say it's not machalik between jam and bee honey. Okay, so tzarachiyun. The shach has an interesting comment. At the end of the shach, in Lamed Zayin, this is more for later in the shir, or maybe later for ta'arovet, but it's interesting, he points out that some point out when we say a birya, if it's complete, it's not batel filu ba'elef. Some say that's not if it's super tiny. It's not referring to the little tiny insects. It has to have a certain size, and perhaps it has to be a sheretz adesha. It has to be at least the size of a barley. Exactly. It has to be at least a barley size. So that's something to think about when we want to be something to be batel b'shishim. Okay, I think so. That leads right into Yud Gimel. Dvash shenafu bo nemalim. So now you have this honey that ants came in. What do? Yicham menu ad nitach v'yasenenu. So you heat up the honey, it makes it thinner, and then you run it through a filter, some kind of a colander with a thin one, tiny holes, so it'll catch whatever you're trying to. That's the whole purpose. And so then it's mutter. You have to take it out, because we said yeshli stapik, but not a problem once you filter it. And there's no issue of heating it up. We're not worried about the flavor. It's not, first of all, I don't know if it's giving any good flavor, but even if you were to say it gives off a good flavor, or the whole issue of mavatel iser lechatchila is not even an issue, because the purpose is not to be mavatel the iser and leave it in there. The purpose is to be matake in your food. It's to eat the food. You just care about the honey. You don't care about the namalim. So that's an important principle also in the future in Tarovet, that when to apply mavatel iser lechatchila. Okay, let's get to Yudalit. Okay, if you have kernels of wheat and you know that there are bugs in there, it's a problem, insects. It's still mutter to grind them and to turn it into flour, as long as you're going to sift it afterwards, and you're doing this at daytime, or at least with good lighting, so that this way you're still able to remove the bugs. Okay, either they're going to get, now the post can point out, either they're going to get from the noise of the grinder or just the whole movement, they're going to run away, so that's good, or they're going to get squashed, hopefully, and then you're going to be able to check it afterwards if there's anything whole. And so if you find anything since you're checking, you're going to throw it away. And then everything else that you cleaned, that's sifted, is going to be mutter. Okay. that's it. Yeah, okay. So let's get to the next one. Tetvav. Okay, perhaps this is interesting. Mine ofot hagadelim be'ilan. Okay, maybe you want to call them tree birds, tree geese, whatever. Some kind of a bird, some kind of a geese. Now we're not talking about insects. We're talking about actual something the size of a bird. Birds can be big and small, but it's something that's big enough that you can do shchita on it with a kane and a veshet. So what's the case? That's the big question. No one really knows what the case is. Let me explain to you, but no one has ever, as far as I know, no one knows what this is referring to. I don't know which Rishonim have seen it or not, but the case is as follows. Mine ofos hagadelim be'ilan. The tree grows, and out of the tree itself grows these ofot, these little birds, or whatever, these birds. They grow out of the tree itself. Utuluyim be'ilan b'chartumein, and they're growing out of the tree. They're hanging from the tree as they grow. That's how they develop. They don't come out of eggs. They grow, and they're hanging from their beak. Asurim mishum sheretz hasheretz ala aretz. So the halacha is Shulchan Aruch paskins. I think it's based on the smak. It's aser, and it's called halachically it's an insect, and there's no way to eat it. It's 100% aser. Interesting.
So biologically a bird.
Well, you can. We don't know what it is. When your case comes up, then we'll discuss your case. No one knows what this case is. Happens to be a three-way machloket in the Rishonim. Believe it or not, they're all concerned about this case. This case is mentioned once in the Zohar, in Shemot Tetvav, Amud Beis, I think. Rabbi Abba sees it, and he says these ofot, they grow out of the tree. It's like a fruit, and then it flies away. And once it gets older, it could swim, fly, whatever it does. So Rabbeinu Tam says it's kosher, but it's a bird, and it needs shchita to eat it. The Mordechai says it's not a bird, it's not an insect, it's basically a fruit, and it's 100%, I don't know what bracha you would make, but it's 100% mutter to eat without shchita. But the halacha is that it's aser, and there's not really an afkamina, because for ofos we need, for the Mordechai, but at least for Rabbeinu Tam, if you call it a bird, we need a masoret for bird anyway, so it doesn't really help us. That covers that. Just also interesting to point out, if you look in the Shach, just out of interest, he writes, Haskamat ha-poskim ki-ha-mechaber. The consensus among the poskim is like the mechaber, that's the Shulchan Aruch, that it's aser, and v'chen da'ata achronim, and so too is the opinion of the achronim. Just as a frame of reference, it's just interesting because the Shach, I believe, lived in the 1600s when this is written, and it's only like 100 years after the Rishonim. So when he says Haskamat poskim, he means Rishonim, and usually when we say poskim, we refer to people who are alive or recently were alive. But here, his poskim are Rishonim, and his achronim were within a span of maybe 100 or 200 years, going back to the late Rishonim. Okay, let's go on. Yeah, I'll save this for after. Okay. Tet Zayin. Kol tolayim hanimtzayim bebehema. So now if you have worms or insects inside a behema, bein shehem bein or labasar, bein shehem b'me'eha asurim. So anywhere inside an animal, the halacha is it's asur. V'hanimtzayim bedagim, but if you find them in fish, actually, while it's still in the flesh, b'me'ehem asurim, bein or labasar or betoch habasar mutarim. So if it's inside the digestive tract, then it's aser. But if it's inside the flesh of fish, it's actually mutar. V'afilu pirshu k'tzat v'chazru mutarim kichein ribiteu. That's normal for them. That's how they live. That's how they grow. Even if they come out and break back in a little bit, that's okay. Okay. When do we say it's aser davka demechaim? Only if it's when they were alive. It's when you found them in the fish. Aval hagadelim bebasar achar shchita or bedagim ugvina mutarim kol zman shelo pirshu. But if it was after shchita, so then it's always going to be okay. And kol zman, as long as they don't leave, They don't leave the fish. Hilkach. Tola'im animtzeim bekeara shel naflu min habasar mutarim. So therefore, if you're eating on your plate and you see them fall out, mutarim. Tadat hamatirin. So according to that opinion, it says it's okay. Who shapiresh mates. That's when the tolat comes out dead, like it falls out, not that it wiggles out. We don't worry that maybe it left when it was alive and then came back in. Sorry, the live and dead is referring to the worms. Chutz lechaticha, outside the piece. The mistama otam shapirshu michayim naflu keshedicha abasa. Because anything that came out when it was alive, we assume is going to go out again when it's alive, and it's not going to end up on your plate. It's going to disappear when you wash them, when you take care of them. So that's not the issue. And some say that even the worms that come about after shchita are also aser, mikol davar hata'un shchita. Okay, from anything that needs shchita, haga. V'nagu lahakel kisvar harishona, and the minhag is like the first opinion. And now, od nuagim b'tayim shel gvina le'ochlan, and there's also minhag that you're allowed to eat. 1 second. When it comes to worms inside cheese, the minhag is to eat them. Af al pi shekovtzin heina v'heina ala gvina, even if they're jumping around within the cheese. Aval in pirshu lagamre, they completely left. Probably they go onto the plate. So then, osrim latam, then that's when the gvina becomes aser. Miu. Im nitarvu b'sha'ar machal v'lo yochlin hasiran, if it jumps into other food and you can't find them, you can't remove them. Ein osrin machal. We don't osir the machal. Ki yesh matirin otam b'chol inyan. Some say it's even mutter, even if they leave the cheese. V'tov lahachmir b'makom she'ein hefsid maruba, and it's good to be machmir if there's not hefsid maruba. The shach points out, okay, afilu on the plate itself, it's mutter. They jump onto the plate and jump right back into the cheese.
French have a cheese like that.
What?
The French have a cheese like that, active mites.
The French have active mites in their cheese. All right, so he writes that that's 100% mutter, even if it jumps onto the plate and back inside, or while it's on the plate. These are, it might have to be on the gvina when you eat it. But okay, so then that's, yeah, I'll assume so. But he writes, if it jumps onto the table, then it becomes aser, at least mishum marit ayin. Okay? Okay, and he points out, according to the Ramah, in Torah Chatas, it's mashma that it's mutter lagamre. That's what the Shach writes. But it's a chumrah to be tov lahachmer. In other words, you don't have to. It's just, it's a good thing to do. Okay. Fine. Let's go to Yud Zayin. Sheretz saruf, mutter le'ochlo mishum refua, de'afra be'almahu. Okay, sheretz, any sheretz that's burnt, it's mutter to eat it for refuah. In other words, mikar din, it's mutter. It's afar. It's only if it's burnt, it's charred. All it is just basically ashes. Halachically, it's mutter. But there's a din, I believe only midarabanan, it's aser. You can call it achsheve or whatever. If your purpose is to eat it, there's an isser darabanan to eat it. But there's no isser darabanan if the whole purpose is for refuah. That's if you're going to be eating it straight out. But if it's just a mixture, so then, unless it's, we'll discuss later, other issues of mamid and things like that. But in general, if it's a mixture, it also wouldn't be an issue. It's batel. Okay, just if you're eating it straight out. Fine. Let's go to, let's learn Chagavim for a moment. And then we'll see what we do for a recap. Okay. Siman Pei. All right. Siman Pei. Simane Chagavim. Locusts and grasshoppers. Okay, so Simanei Chagavim. Kol sheyesh lo arba raglaim. Okay, so these are the simanim that make grasshoppers or locusts kosher. What are they? They have to have 4 legs, v'arba kanafayim, 4 wings, ukanafav chofim et rov orach gufo v'rov hakefo. They're going to cover most of their length and circumference. V'yesh lo shnei kra'ayim lenater. And you have these 2 extra legs in the back. Perush l'kafei tzulatik v'makom v'makom. Lenater means to jump. Right? Bahem, with them. V'afil ein lo achshav, even if they don't have these legs right now, ve'ati legadlam, they're going to grow, le'achar zman, later on, ve'afapi sheyesh bo kol hasimanim halalu, eino muter, ela imkein, shmo chagav. So these are the simanim, however, you cannot rely on them. Right? These are the simanim, but they're not reliable unless they are called, all the experts in the field, they call them a chagav. Anything that's called a chagav, and it has these simanim, it's muter. Or sheish lahem masoret sheshmo chagav. Or it has a masoret that we know that it's kosher, and then the masorah makes it that once you have the masorah, then it's good. The Taz and all the poskim point out that nowadays we don't have, you can't eat it nowadays unless you have a masorah, and none of us have a masorah except for the Jews in Teiman, as far as I know. The community in Gibraltar used to eat them?
Until the second last ban, when you came.
What year? Okay. They were eating them in Morocco for a period, and the Orach Chaim asered it. The main reason why he asered it was because he wasn't sure if it was the right one. Apparently they had some kind of a masara. I don't know how reliable it was, but they decided not to. He decided it didn't fit Rashi's description, who says the kra'ayim had to be near the head, and it's a little further from the head. So he just said, we don't know what it is, and he passed, and it's asr for the community. But in general, it's mamash asr in every community around the world except for the Yemenites, as far as I know. Now here, just a couple of quick things on this. So there's no, by chagavim, there's no ever min achai issues. The only issue is bal teshaktu, and according to the Torah, eating it live, sorry. Only eating it live, or if for you it's bal teshaktu, also just eating it dead. According to the Torah, there's 4 chagavim types. The solam, chulei lists 4 of them, and it says laminehu. So there's 8 mina Torah, and mistama there's really, based on breeds and stuff like that. There's probably, if you want to get technical with our nomenclature nowadays, there's probably hundreds, but who knows? There is another siman that's people speak about, more or less well known, but it's not really halachic, is they have a chet on their chest or stomach. So that's just interesting if you see one. And so nowadays, can you eat it? So it seems pretty clear from, I believe, all the poskim. I have not seen one that says otherwise. Maybe there is one, I don't know, but that all the poskim nowadays say a Yemenite can eat it, that's his Masara, and you can come to Israel and eat it, it's his Masara. And basically, it's the same halacha that we learned in the end of Pei Bet. If you were to go visit Yemen, you can eat it. However, for any community around the world to eat it, to now take upon themselves to eat it because of the Jews in Yemen, that would be asr. It's a machloket rishonim. Again, it depends how you learn that machloket rishonim, but the Shulchan Aruch paskins that you should be machmer, and that's what all the poskim say. Kaf HaChaim, Yalkut Yosef.
Or the Yemenite family here in Israel.
So they can eat it.
So if you're a guest there.
Oh, I believe not. Only in Yemen, to the best of my knowledge. So,
You have a whole yeshiva of Yemenites.
right. But they're in Israel. I don't think so. Okay. Yesh ladun. Okay, so that's Kaf HaChaim, Yalkut Yosef, and others that say it's asr for Sfardim, for Ashkenazim to eat it. Okay, bet chagavim enam teunim shchita. Now chagavim you can just eat them; they don't need shchita. We had this by fish. Tzir chagavim temeim is mutter. Now even the juice that comes out of them, it's considered just some moisture, but it has no real substance of the locust to make it asr. So the din is it's the tzir is it's 100% mutter. It's a whole discussion: can you eat it straight out, or which seems to be the halacha, maybe just b'ta'arovet, but most of the poskim say, right, the Marshal's machmer, but the Shachtaz and the poskim say it's mutter. So that would be the halacha, that it's straight out. The blood of chagavim, so it depends. If it's kosher chagavim, it's kosher dam. There's no isser of dam. And if it's a dag tame, a chagav tame, like fish, it's only aser because of yotze mina tame. But there's no isser of dam.
So the dam is also because it's Joseph Natame.
Only the blood of non-kosher locust is, yeah, but not because of an Isser Dam. Okay, now I just want to give a short, should I do a separate recording? It'll take me 5 or 10 minutes. Separate recording? Okay.